This is the time that because Michael Cirillo didn't show up, we roast him.
This is Auto Collabs.
Oh. All right, I didn't know what you were gonna say.
You think you not show up, we roast you.
Oh, that's a great thing. Now, if I can stall just enough to get back to my chat history from Grok the other day. I don't know if you noticed this, but if you have X and you go, you know where I'm going with this. And
I'm so ready.
And you go into Grok, there's now a button because now Grok is right at the bottom of the X feed. You just press the button and all of a sudden you're in there. And I, the other day, happened to open it. I'm like, oh, there's a Grok button. Press the Grok button. And there's the preset that says roast me. I was like, yes.
Yes.
So I did it.
Take it.
And it roasted me. And it was pretty fun. Made fun of my profile picture and everything. And then I was like, roast Michael Cirillo, host of the Dealer Playbook podcast. And here's what it said. My voice for emphasis. I'm reading text.
Your voice for emphasis.
Michael Cirillo, the self-proclaimed guru of I'll actually read it like Michael, of car dealership marketing. With his podcast, The Dealer Playbook, you've got more episodes than the Eagles have close calls in the playoffs. You talk a big game about dominating the retail industry, but let's face it, your real playbook seems to be, quote, how to milk the same topic for hundreds of episodes.
I love AI. You know, we've had actually a lot of conversations with the company that Ted Rubin founded, our guest on the show today, particularly about AI and its use in the industry, particularly in chat. We've had chats with his team. They've been to our events. And, it is this conversation of like, okay, is it going to take over? Are we going to have roasts by AI and it's just going to absolutely be slaughtering us all the time? Or is there human nuance that is super important to kind of understanding what's going on in the world, business interactions, interpersonal, all that type of stuff?
Yeah. So looking forward. This is the first time, we've, like you said, interacted so much with the company over the years, but never with Ted. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation we have with Ted Rubin, CEO and founder of Active Engage.
All right, we're super excited for this one. Ted, thanks so much for joining us on Auto Collabs.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it. I love you guys.
There's several things I need to just get out of the way right out of the gates.
Here we go.
I just have to know. I mean, Europe is one of my favorite places to go and travel. So I need to hear about, I've heard through the grapevine, there's a little birdie chirping saying we need to ask Ted about his recent visit to Europe. And so, I mean, the floor is yours, sir. What happened?
What happened?
Please, you didn't wake up in the back of a van somewhere, did you?
No, I didn't wake up in the back of a van. My wife is a sommelier, and so she knows people all over the world, especially in Europe, who are winemakers and champagne makers and things like that. And so we tend to spend a decent amount of time in Italy and France, which is horrible for me. And
sounds awful.
Sounds terrible. Poor you.
Yeah, it was very difficult, but I just fought through it. And so she had an opportunity to be there and go to Champagne and be, right at the Champs-Elysees for New Year's, which is like being in Times Square. And so we were right at the arch, like 80 yards, and had dinner at a restaurant, and then just walked out kind of onto the street because they had it all blocked off. It was sort of a secluded area and stuff like that. And there were about 100 of us that had, an entire street to ourselves. And then if you kind of turn the corner, there was 400,000 people that were standing around.
You're like, oh, look at these poor saps that have to do life that way. Sip, pinky in the air.
So she's a sommelier, you said?
Oh, yeah.
Did
Absolutely.
you help her study for this, or was this already in place when you met?
Me?
Yeah.
No. I don't. Yeah.
Because that's intense. Isn't that one of the hardest certifications that somebody can get? One of the most difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I think, being a doctor is probably more complicated and stuff like that as far as getting certified. But
okay, fair.
Yeah, I mean, she used to sell wine, and she did all the training and took the tests and everything like that. And So she's kind of like a mid to high level sommelier, and she's helped set up. She used to work in the industry and set up people's restaurants, what they ordered. She used to sell to them. Then she was just kind of doing menus and things like that. And
I got to ask you then. They let me get one controversial question in on these things.
How many do you want? I mean, we're 3 deep at this point.
No controversy.
I'm just here to answer your questions. That's all that I'm here for, is just to answer your questions.
For you as a tech guy,
yeah,
with Active Engage and everything that you guys do there, has it ever crossed your mind that AI could replace the recommendations of a sommelier? I'll see myself out, guys.
Has it crossed my mind? It has crossed my mind. The issue is, so it's a very subjective thing, right? Because each person has a specific taste, and then it depends. Everything depends on what you're eating, and then with the flavors and the sensibility of what each winemaker has made and when it was made and what transpired at that particular time in that particular year. It's almost like looking at art, right? So when you look at art, old art or new art, then it usually represents something about the time that it was done. Even if it's a painting of an older item, then there's something about it that represents the moment in time that the painting was done. And so wine is like that. It has to do with who was the winemaker at that particular moment, what was important to people, at that particular point in time, and what happened with the weather throughout the entire year. Was it a wet year? Was it a dry year? Did it have a lot of water at the end? Did it have it in the beginning? Other things like that. People think of some of these wines and how old they are, and they can get tremendously old, and they're kind of consistently a certain way. Some of the really big, like Burgundies and Bordeaux and things like that. Other things that you just would be surprised to know, such as Champagne, which obviously was a wine. It was just basically considered a wine. The person who kind of turned it into the celebratory thing was the Veuve Clicquot, the widow Clicquot. That's what that means. And she basically, during Napoleon and a lot of the Napoleonic laws, where they were not allowed to sell to Russia, she found kind of a conduit, like a backdoor, to be able to sell to Russia. Yeah, and that opened up a huge market. But her whole way of presenting
a marketer is the reason.
Yeah,
right.
That's it.
I like how Ted. I like how Ted is like, no, I don't know. I'm way over my pay grade, and then he just gives us a dissertation,
a beautiful
on why
history lesson.
It was very artistic. It was
and ironically, some parallels to the car business, like to the car buying journey, and how many different touch points there are, and considerations and nuances,
and what's important to who, when, and why, culturally speaking.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Was it a wet year? Was it a dry year? I mean, shifting to the car business with what you're doing with Active Engage. What are some of the things that you're thinking about, especially with the emergence of, programmatic and, artificial intelligences and language models and things of that nature as it pertains to digital retail, the path to purchase, the various touch points and nuances that are in a car shopper's path to purchase? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think that AI, is starting to have a big impact and will long-term have a huge impact, on the entire industry about the way things get done. I think that, we use it a lot for aggregation of data, and we use it for presenting information to our agents so that we can find information more quickly. We use it for reporting. And, I think there's a lot of places actually in the dealership where it can be used really, really well to, identify, a doc sheet maybe for guys who don't really understand how to look at one, if you're new to running dealerships. I think that, especially for accounting and a lot of other areas, certainly in our area, we use it to monitor conversations, to be able to bring up data for the agent and bring pertinent information very specifically to the forefront so that they can communicate about what's going on, or no specials or no details about the dealership and other things like that. I don't think it's really the place that you want to. I mean, I know that there's been some dealers or some companies who are kind of pushing to move the front end of the conversation to AI. I don't think that's a wise move at this particular moment. And it's not that you shouldn't use AI. I think you should, but I don't think it should be talking to the customer, because I mean, I'm an old school automotive guy. This will be like my 25th NADA, and I was
I
selling
don't know.
cars
Like
back
when I
in.
was looking at your LinkedIn profile, I didn't want to be the one to like bring the mood down. But according to your profile,
Yeah.
you started in automotive in the 90s.
Early 90s. Yeah. It
90s.
was
Well,
like
96 is
93.
the first thing on your profile. Oh, it goes further. 93.
Yeah. Further back. Yeah.
So it makes
Well, you can
sense.
see it. I think it shows. I think you
Mine
can
shows more
see.
here,
Really?
but
Um,
25 NADAs.
25 NADAs. Look, I mean,
Including time with like groups. Like I think it's important, like whenever someone
yeah.
works for an industry tech partner, like you had an extensive run like with AutoNation, like hands in the dirt, like with
Yeah.
dealers on the front lines
Yeah,
as a part of
absolutely.
the
I mean,
internal system of a dealer group.
yeah, listen, I mean, I was in the stores. I actually had another company that was an inventory maintenance company in the earlier in the 90s. And I ended up working I got to be very lucky. Okay. So when I sold that company, I ended up working for Geronimo Esteve at the headquarter. He was just making it a group. It was actually just a store at that time. And I started, basically in get ready and managing those guys. And throughout my career, I've been in parts. I was parts manager, director of parts and service. I've been on the sales side, general sales manager. I worked for AutoNation. I got to work for these guys who were unbelievably savvy. And because I worked directly for those guys, they would sit and pontificate things, just as I was kind of growing up in the business. And I worked for Rick Case and Rita Case. I worked for Phil Smith. I
Great
worked
people.
for Geronimo Esteve. And then I was part of this initial team that was put together by AutoNation to define how vehicles were going to be sold over the internet back, in 99 and 2000. And, we all kind of figured that out and then sold $1 billion worth of vehicles. And then people looked at us and were like, hey, how did that happen? And we all kind of went off and
yeah, you can do that. So like
but,
it's obvious you've had all the experiences. And I think one of the disconnects that happens when a tech partner says, hey, this tech could help you. Right. I think the first unspoken question, well, I think we probably know a lot of dealers that would actually say it out loud. What do you know about selling cars? Right.
Right.
And you've been there and you've done it. And so throughout your journey, you've just done all these things. You've had all these positions and you become a part of what Active Engage is doing. And a lot of times I think that when people make those decisions, it's because there's something about the DNA of the company that is attractional to them. So what is it about the DNA of Active Engage that was attractional to you, and how would you like position it?
Yeah, I think that, from the beginning, when we came up with the idea to start the company for Active Engage, the goal was to not exactly take over. We wanted to augment the impact, for the salespeople at the store to be able to be more effective and more efficient in their dealings with the customer, right? And so dealers themselves, there's a lot of training that goes into it, and there's the pros programs, and there's all these other things that dealers and salespeople and sales managers do to kind of become more effective at interacting with the customer. And as I was, starting to go talk about before, ever since I've been in any business, and I was in some other businesses even before that, even before being in the automotive industry, when you're selling yourself first. It's all about the personal interaction and who you are and whether they trust you. And then that transfers over to the product. There's lots of products and you can buy that product anywhere. If you're buying a Toyota, there's a dozen dealerships, within 30, 40 miles that they could buy the car from. It's really about who is going to service the customer the way that they want to be serviced, talk to them the way that they want to be talked to. Do they believe in you? Do they trust you? So that's relationship building, right? And so when we design the company from the ground up, we were saying, like, how can we impact it so salespeople can be more efficient, more impactful? Can we get the customer the initial communication so that instead of just getting a lead, we don't care a lot about leads here. We do care about leads. It's not fair to say we don't, but we want to make sure we're supplying a customer who's highly motivated to want to buy from you, from the company that we're representing. If we're representing Auto Trader or KBB, or if we're representing the dealership themselves or a dealer group, then we want to make sure the customer understands that there's a relationship there, there's empathy, there's someone who cares about what's going on. We're going to talk to you to try to build trust and to motivate you to want to buy there. And the way that we do that is by making sure that you have the information. We're giving you information. You're asking a question, we're not going, here's another question. You're asking a question, we're giving you information. And we want to make sure that you understand. And we'll talk about the sales process at the store, and we'll make sure that you know what's coming next. And, we want to make sure that you've gotten the information that you came on to get. And I think that's where a lot of people miss. They forget that, selling is about selling you. And if they don't buy into who you are, then they're not going to buy anything from you. And everybody knows that, but they somehow forget that online, because otherwise you would walk into a store and there would be kiosk,
Right.
no salespeople.
That's right, but that's not what people want. And I think, like every entrepreneur, and it's very obvious, you are just one of those, it'll never stop serial entrepreneurs that, we constantly think like, there's a better way. There's a problem for this. And coming from
Right.
JM&A, right? And starting Active Engage, there was a thing, there's a better way. And you brought up, Michael, I don't know if you've ever heard this, because Michael's early career was like Canada auto,
Right.
and then, but
The
I don't know, maybe-
frozen tundra.
the frozen tundra.
Hey, I'm
But,
part
like-
Canadian. That's okay. I like that.
and the adage was sell yourself, sell the house, sell the car.
Right.
Right? People need
You're
to
right,
like
that's it.
you, and then they need to understand why this business is great. And now this is the product that the business sells.
That's it. I mean, and it's so much more important that you build that trust and that you build the relationship with the customer now, because there are things that you really need to trust, right? I mean, it's harder to get.
Yeah.
It's harder to believe in the things that you're being told, and there's a lot of scary stuff out there.
We
and
trust
there's a lot
less
of
than we
impactful
ever
things.
have, right? Is it fair to say, do you both think?
I agree.
It's fair to say that, like, when I come up on a net new relationship or buying a product from a net new company, my trust probably starts off lower than it would have like 20 years ago.
I think the thing that's also strange about this too, I think where it kind of tweaks the dealers where they're not sure how it works is, so if you ask a customer, and we see this all the time, so if you just ask a customer, what's your name and email, well, that's not hard to get, right? So anybody can get that. You can just ask and they'll tell you. It's will they respond to the phone call now when you call them? Will they respond to the email when you email them? Probably not, because there's not any trust. If that's all that you did, you have to build some sort of feeling that you're on the same side and that you're trying to get to the end of either a transaction or a conversation or whatever it is, that, something transactionally in the conversation that's happening, so that the customer feels like that was good. I would talk to that person again. But if all you do is go online and you're measuring, that's why I said it before, if all you're doing is measuring just leads, anybody can just, hey, can you tell me, please, do you have this car? Do you, would you like it or not? How much is it? And you go, well, what's your name and number? Well, you're going to get it. And then you might go, and we've seen other companies where they just go, okay, thanks, I'll have someone contact you. That customer's never talking to you. They didn't get anything that they asked for.
No, you brought this up earlier, like why, how come all of a sudden it changes online? And I love this talk track about, stop focusing on the leads, start focusing on building relationships. As an agency guy myself, I think I can envision 75-year-old Michael with PTSD over the word lead. Because it's like, and I think the three of us could agree, to your point, Ted, that the difference between an okay lead and a great lead is often how it's handled and how the relationship is formed. You go on a cruise, there's a cruise director and there's event coordinators that are making sure that at every turn you're having the best experience, that your trust in that cruise line and in your experiences is increasing. I often think, in conjunction with what you do, what would happen, how quickly we would abandon this lead concept, and if we changed our paradigm to say, I'm not a BDC, I'm not a chat rep, I am a customer experience coordinator.
Right.
I am here to make sure, like a wedding planner almost, I am here to make sure that at every turn you are going, whoa, they thought of everything. They answered all of my questions. To your point, I just think that this is such a big thing especially this year and beyond, to underscore in this conversation that we got to stop talking about leads, because any one of us on this call right now could throw money at Facebook ads and you're going to be bombarded with leads.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Those interactions of people that are actually genuinely interested, who came to you from a variety of factors, who are asking questions of interest, and to your point where you left off saying, and then you handle them with, what's your name and address? What's your phone number? You send out a canned text message, a canned email message. And then we sit here and lament about why nobody's responding. And the simple answer is because the internet has teleported many of us to an alternate reality where stupidity is okay. Like I don't have a, it's just, what do I do with my hands? Would you do it in real life? No, then definitely don't do it online.
Right.
Definitely should do it online.
I think I think you're definitely right. I mean, listen, just looking back to the DNA, and I'm going to answer all your questions just in a very random order, I guess. But the goal for us, the way we built the company, as I was starting to say, or trying to say, and I just forgot about it, is effectively, we want to be able to, we're going to supply leads to the dealer for sure, but we don't want to just increase the number of leads. That's sort of formulaic because, we're added onto a website. So you're going to possibly get more, but I want to increase the number of sales that each salesperson is producing without increasing the effort. See, that's the problem with just supplying leads is you're supplying all this stuff to salespeople and they're like, oh God, I'll just go through these, or I don't want to look at these, or this is what I'm going to, and it's just too much. I mean, certainly if you take 1,000 leads, then you'll sell the volume of cars that you want to be able to sell. The goal is, can I sell that same volume and do it in the work week that I'm capable of working? Can I sell that same volume with having to stay here for 80 hours a week or 90 hours a week to be able to sell it? So our goal is to matriculate these customers so that they're very desirous of wanting to buy from you. Why? Because they built a relationship, so now they're connected to you. They built it with a human being. If you're on the phone with a computer, then do you care if you're like, oh, he's halfway through a statement, I'm just going to hang up? It's a computer. I don't care. If it's a person, you're not going to do that. You're going to be talking to someone in the middle of them saying something. They're like, no, it doesn't happen.
So true.
I mean, that's the reality of the situation. I think that it's important for people to realize the impact of talking to a human being. It is huge. It is a huge thing to talk to a human being.
If we had white hankies, we'd be waving them right now.
And so it's so meaningful, and it makes the customer much more tied to the dealership, much more desirous of pursuing the relationship because they've invested time in it. Remember all these things from when you were first starting to sell cars? Yeah. Now they've invested time, they've invested interest, they can do their research beforehand. And in fact, if all you're doing is producing, relative information, do you have this? Does it have this information? Does it have these things? They don't need you. That's not why they chat. People don't chat because they're looking for the information. People are chatting to test you.
Right.
People are chatting to see how you're going to respond.
Point. That is a great
That's
point.
what they're doing. Because if you think they're chatting to get information, you think you're the only source for information? I can just go into Google and go, does this vehicle have these options?
Right. They're saying, do I like this person? Right.
That's what it is. That's what it is. How does this dealership operate? Do they care about their customers, or are we just a number? And are we just somebody who's out there, and am I going to be handled that way? I want to know that when I go into a dealership, I'm not going to spend 5.5 hours waiting to get into F&I. I want to know that they're going to be nice to me. I want to know that they're going to give me service. And if I have a problem, then I can take my car. But that's what they're doing. Going online to be able to actually chat, that's what they're doing. If you think it's something else, it's not. It's even more so that way than it is with email. It's more impact because now it's real time. You don't have time to kind of think about what's going on.
A chat is a conversation. Emails,
chat's a conversation.
Emails, you're writing letters. right? Chat
It's
as you're
just
having
like
a conversation.
it's just like this conversation. Like I like you guys even more now, even though we're just sort of meeting for the first time
Right.
than I did before. And I watched all your stuff because I'm talking to you. There's interaction. I feel like, hey, these guys are nice. They're going to treat me well, and everything's good. No one said anything really wonky. You like all the stuff about the wine and everything. I feel good. I feel good about things. But I mean, that's because of this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because I had, a list or a prompter and it was just, answer this question, answer this question, answer this question, which means I have no connection to
Yeah,
that
we'd be asleep
at
by
all.
then if that's how we ran
Right.
the show.
We'll get to your prepared text in a minute. No.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, and it's really great to see that through founding Active Engage and keeping these kind of as first principles, right? Like
Mhm.
overlaying the tech, you're able to affect that feeling at scale for dealers and consumers.
Awesome.
I think it's a great look for the industry to have
Mhm.
any consumer that shops at any dealership walk away from a chat conversation, feeling like they care about me. I think we all
Yeah.
win when that happens. That I'm not going to forget that. That is, for me, that's like going to be the thing stuck in my mind when a consumer asks you,
Mhm.
a detailed question, a detail about a car. What they're actually asking themselves is, do I like this person? And if you respond and the response is like, don't respond with the information only, respond because you want that person to know that you care about them.
That's right. And I mean, also, everybody really, another thing that I used to even say to my own salespeople when I had them, when I was running them in the stores and stuff like that is, everybody wants to be on the other side of the velvet rope, right? Everybody wants to be on the red carpet, on the other side of the velvet rope, in the VIP room, not just because it's special, but they know everything that's on the other side. I'm going to get treated super well. I'm going to get all the things that I want. I'm going to, see other people that are going to pay attention. Who doesn't want that? So when the ability to offer that is just as simple as having a live person talk to them, having someone pay attention to the conversation, making sure that you're responsive, that you're getting back to them right away, that you're answering their questions. I mean, it isn't that hard to give someone that kind of VIP solution and do it in a very, with the humanity that you have. And again, I think that, I want to make sure that anybody who's hearing this from me, this isn't discounting or taking anything away from AI. I think AI is necessary to give a lot of the superlative responses that we're able to give. I just don't think that people want to talk to a computer. That's all.
I can't think of a better way to end this conversation. Ted, it has been a blast having this conversation. We learned a little bit about wine. You've got me thinking about things in a more philosophical way about communication. And as always, your heart to serve the industry and make it better, make it more human is just shining through bright and clear. Ted, thank you so much for giving some of your time today on Auto Collabs.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys. It's been a really fun time. Thanks so much.
So it's so funny we talk about the nuance of human interaction and how AI has a problem with nuance. It tries to force feed it. And when Ted's talking about, Michael asks him, do you think, Ted's wife is a sommelier. Do you think AI will replace a sommelier? And he just went into extreme detail on the nuance needed to do pairings, complex pairings. And I think that's just the same with humans. Like, it's a nuanced, complex pairing on what they're saying and all the other signals they're throwing and what they actually are trying to get to.
Well, and I think as humanity, and when you liken it to like a SOM versus like a salesperson, right? I think we appreciate well-timed opinion and nuance that's like kind of sees the interpersonal connection of everything, right? Like a wine pairing with a good steak, or understanding exactly what's going on with the taste nuance of this wine. Like, there's an opinionated state to that. The greater you graduate in like things like being a SOM, there's definitely more alignment along those things.
He says
but
a SOM, like everyone knows it's a Somali.
Yeah.
He's
It's a
fancy
Somali.
Nashville.
Yeah.
He's fancy.
But I think that's the nuance that we get the opportunity to provide, kind of clearing the way for the menial things, the tasks master stuff that AI can help us accomplish. And then you layer in this like unique nuance. And we have to go back at that point to really, really going deeper on the soft skills of interpersonal relationship and communication. And that's where, whether it be chat or in the showroom or wherever it is, like your soft skills as an industry employee have to be even greater the more AI is introduced, because it is the differentiator.
Without a doubt. When Ted's in there talking about the impact, like the DNA of the company and how the impact of talking to a human is actually far greater than we give it credit for, but we're going to appreciate it more and more.
Yep.
The more we have to interact with AI. Well, we hope we got to talk to some humans today out there. That's the great thing about podcasts.
That's
only humans listen to podcasts.
That's right.
But not only humans do it. We're 2 humans here, other 2 humans in the interview. Ted, we have 5 humans. 5 collective humans. I'm running out of chance. Lots of humans on the show. Listen, that's why we do things. So we can connect things in a meaningful way, because we believe thriving humans are at the center of a thriving industry. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. On behalf of Kyle Mountsier, the roasted Michael Cirillo, and myself, thanks for joining us today on Auto Collabs.
Welcome to Auto Collabs. Why are we recording?
Are we rolling yet?